Good. All right. Welcome everyone to the February 3rd Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. First, we'll begin with introductions of the commission. I'll start. My name is Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, and I was nominated by the community at large. Lars?
Lars Bildman. I was nominated by the mayor's office, business owner and general contractor.
Rusty Brown, I'm an architect and was nominated by the AIA.
I'm Bree Saman, an interior designer and project manager, and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
I'm sorry, Chris McGinnis, forensic architect, nominated by the mayor's office.
I'm Emily Hazen, preservationist and designer, nominated by city planning.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Great. So we always reserve a time at the beginning of our meetings for general comments, either from commissioners or staff. And also this is a time when I'll ask if anyone on the commission has a conflict of interest or ex parte communication that they need to announce for any of our agenda items. Commissioners, do you have any to recuse yourself from? Any comments? Okay, staff.
I did want to note that we have filed the design guidelines with the Denver Clerk and Recorder's Office, and they are also available on our website. And we will be having a public hearing at the next Landmark Preservation Commission meeting with the hope that we will be adopting those new guidelines for windows and doors and revisions to Chapter 1, as well as a new layout for the entire document. And I just briefly wanted to go over how the public hearing will work with the commission, so you can have that in your mind as we lead up to that public hearing. So per the rulemaking process, we can refile revised portions of the text at least 3 days prior to the public hearing. So Landmark staff are going through and making minor grammatical typo edits. We're also working with the city attorney's office to make some clarifications based on their edits, and we will be refiling the document on February 12th and reposting the document on our website. Changes in the text of the proposed rule may be made during or as a result of the public hearing at the discretion of the adopting authority. You as the commission are the adopting authority without further notice or further notice or hearing. So anything that comes out of the public hearing, you may adopt based on the public hearing, and we can make those updates as well. You can also reschedule the rulemaking without renoticing. So we did have to officially notice in the Denver Post, which is the city's preferred publication. So we would not have to renotice per the rulemaking, but I did want to let you know that you can continue the public hearing or do that if you would like based on discussion. In terms of adoption of the final rules, so if you adopt on the February 17th date, the document goes into effect when it is signed by the chair, which is Erica, and then also by the city attorney. So when that happens, the official rules will become effective. And then we also, within 7 days of that signing, have to file with the city attorney's office again. So that is when the document becomes fully official. So that is how the rulemaking process works. Again, we will be refiling on February 12th with those grammatical errors and advice based on what the city attorney has given us, which we are working on currently. We will update the commission on what all of those except for minor grammatical errors, but we'll go over all of that at the public hearing. And we're looking forward to doing this with y'all.
Great, thank you, Brittany. All right, I think we're moving on to our public comment period of our meeting. But first, we have some instructions. If there's anyone joining us virtually, we can let you know how to make a comment if you wish to. So these are audio tips for those of you joining us virtually. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom on your device. From there, you can click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, such as adding background noise suppression and testing your speaker and microphone to adjust their volume output. For those of you presenting or making public comment, when it's your turn to speak, you may unmute by clicking on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. And then you can also expand the menu next to the microphone to reveal the additional options of selecting your devices for speaker and microphone and testing them for their volume output. If you're still having audio challenges, we ask that you switch to phone for audio. So the public comment period is our time for each meeting when comments about either historic preservation in general or any of our items on the consent review agenda, design review agenda, business items, and discussion items are welcome. Further comments on these topics will not be taken later in the meeting, so if you would like to make a comment, now is your time to do so. We don't have any public hearing agenda items, so I won't go over that. But when you would like to, if you would like to make a comment now, we ask that you click the hand raise button in Zoom if you're joining us virtually. And if you are joining by phone, you can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand. If you are having trouble with these options, please email landmark@denvergov.org and give your name and phone number so we can recognize you and call upon you, knowing that you'd like to make comments. So we'll start with those of you joining us here in person. We know we have one person here who would like to make a comment. Sue, you're welcome to come up to the table. When you do start your time, you have up to 2 minutes, and we ask that you give us your name. Please do, yes. Or, I mean, I guess you don't have to sit, but it would be good to have you there so people online can see you.
I'm Sue Glassmacher, 1037 29th Street, Curtis Park. And I'm asking if you would consider taking the Curtis Park sign off the consent agenda so it can be discussed. And the reason I want to see that is, although the building itself is designated as a commercial building, it sits 3 sides around it as all residential. We're all historic. And it sits the third other side sits adjacent to the park or looking over the park. And we do not have any blade signs in the neighborhood. All the other vendors, we have small places, and everybody has the signs in the windows, and they're very considerate about not coming out into being out in the neighborhood and they go home and they turn off their little sign. And I think this is intrusive to the residential, which we are, a residential neighborhood. And we have our spots, but we are residential. And I think this does impugn upon the residents. And they'll be able to see it, and they might see the glow of it. And also the park. It's just nicer that it isn't seen from the park. So while it might fit the building, I don't think it fits the historic district. And I'd like you to consider that.
Okay, thank you, Sue. All right, is there anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment on any of our agenda items or preservation in general? No hands raised. Okay. All right. We will now move on to our consent agenda. We have several items. These are all considered routine projects that Landmark staff has determined to meet the design guidelines for Denver landmark structures and districts and are recommended for commission approval without discussion. We may approve these items as a group. However, if any commission member would like to request that an item be moved from this consent agenda to the regular design review, they may do so, and then we will consider it under that heading. So I will go through each, name off each project, and then we will hear if anyone would like to remove an item before we have a motion and vote. So we have, bear with me, I'm going to name all of these off. We have application number 2025-COA-944 at 3201 Curtis Street in the Curtis Park G District. 2025-TAXC-037 3225 West 23rd Avenue in Witter Cofield. 2025-TAXC-039 at 3147 North Umatia Street or also known as the Alexander Cowie House. 2026 TAXC-007 at 2111 South Fillmore Street in University Park. 2026 TAXC-004 at 537 North Gilpin Street in Driving Park. 2026 TAXC-006 at 260 North Ray Street in Country Club. 2026 TAXC-009 at 50 West Ellsworth Avenue in Baker. 2026 TAXC-010 at 2600 North Milwaukee Street, also known as the Henderson House. 2026 TAXC-008 at 1750 North Gilpin Street, which is a landmark building. 2025 TAXC-026 at 3731 North Zuni Street in Potter Highlands. 2026 TAXC-011 at 313 West 2nd Avenue in Baker. 2026 TAXC-001 at 700 North Franklin Street in East 7th Avenue. 2026 TAXC-002 or 556 Circle Drive in Country Club. 2026 TAXC-012 at 2945 East 7th Avenue in the East 7th Avenue District. 2026 TAXC-005 at 801 North Vine Street in the Morgans Subdivision District. Commissioners, are there any items on this agenda that you would like to have removed? We have had one public comment on the first project and a letter about that. You'd like to move that 2025-COA-944 at 3201 Curtis Street to design review. Okay, thank you, Emily. All right, any others, commissioners? All right, would someone like to make a motion then?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Except for the first.
Except for 3201 Curtis Street.
Okay, thank you, Rusty. Do we have a second? Thank you, Emily. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay. So the consent agenda, save for the first item at 3201 Curtis Street, have been approved. If you are joining us, and this is one of your projects, you're welcome to leave the meeting, or you may remain online and hear us through the rest of it. But otherwise, your project is approved, and you can work with commission staff to move on to your next steps. Okay. So as we prepare, we didn't previously have anything scheduled for design review, but we will move the one project that we will be hearing over to design review. So give us just a moment to do that. Maybe we can. I suggest I could go over the
The slide.
Okay.
The slide is not sharing, so pull the slide.
Got it. Okay. So design review, these are items that require individual consideration by the commission and are reviewed and discussed separately before a motion and vote is taken for each one. We now have just the one design review item that was moved from consent agenda. That is, again, COA. Okay. 2025-COA-944 at 3201 Curtis Street in Curtis Park G District. We'll hear from staff about this project, after which commissioners may question staff before we hear from the applicants if they are prepared to present to us. And then they are limited to 10 minutes, after which we may also question the applicant team before we hear from staff if there's any needed clarifications. And then we'll move into our deliberation and then have a motion and vote. So we will hear from Crystal about this project.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Okay, so this property is located at 3201 Curtis Street and was constructed in 1928 as the Denver Fire Department Station number 10. The property is contributing to the district, and the structure has been adaptively reused since that time and will now be home to a new cafe tenant, Momentum Cafe. And the new tenant is proposing to add one new projecting sign. Next slide. So here are the plans for the projecting sign, and at the top right, I've included an old photo of the fire station, just for historic context and for the school. So there you go. So the new projecting sign is proposed to be added on a two-story brick structure at the corner of Curtis Street and 32nd Street for the new use in the structure. The applicants are also proposing a new outdoor patio near this corner as well, so the use will have direct street access, but that is being reviewed in a separate application from this one. The applicant will only attach the sign through the mortar joints of the brick of the building, and the sign will stand a minimum of 6 inches off the building. The sign will be made of aluminum and is proposed to have halo backlit illumination, which is allowed per design guideline 6.10. Next slide. So here on the left, and I know it's small here, but I've included some zoning information for reference. So as you can see at the top left, the property is zoned UMX2X, and it's just that one square with a little yellow circle. As you can see, the URH 2.5 around it is the residential zoning. So those zone districts do not allow projecting signage. Just this one block with this one building does allow projecting signs. And then below it is section 10.10.10 of the Denver zoning code. And again, hard to read, but I basically just highlighted that it allows projecting signage here. So it is allowed in this zone district just for this building. So the projecting sign would have been administratively approved if it cleanly met design guideline 6.20 or 6.21. However, the applicant is requesting a sign that's almost like a hybrid of these two design guidelines, which is why we've sent it forward to the commission today for your review and approval. So as you can see, design guideline 6.20 is at center, 6.21 is at the far right. Typically, shaped projecting signs do allow up to 12 square feet of sign area, and they do allow halo backlit lighting. However, points C and E of design guideline 2.0, 6.20 states to keep wording to a minimum on a three-dimensional object and to limit rectangular forms. So this particular sign is rectangular and is mainly the business name, so it doesn't cleanly meet points C and E, which is why we've brought it forward to the commission today. However, Landmark staff believes that this style of sign and design were common to see in places nearby, like Five Points and other areas of the city historically. So we felt that the sign could be appropriate in this location, also being adjacent to the park and to the corner, not being directly next to housing. And it is a two-story building, so we felt that even though it exceeds 6 square feet of the projecting blade sign design guideline, not too much bigger. We felt that it made sense here. So staff was recommending approval of the sign.
So, commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
sorry, go ahead.
You said 12 square feet would be the max. What's the square
So
footage of?
there's two design guidelines for signs. There's the shaped one, which is mainly what's allowed in downtown. So if you've ever been downtown, you see like the water grill sign or any of those shaped ones. That's 6.20. You can do up to 12 square feet, but it can't be rectangular. It can't be just a business name. It has to be some kind of shape. And so if they did a shape of some sort, like a coffee cup for their cafe, and then had like the name of it hanging under it or something, they could do that. That wouldn't need to come back if it met that guideline. It's because it's rectangular, and it's just the name of the business and not kind of a three-dimensional iconographic design that it's here today.
So it can be bigger if it's got the shape of an anchor.
Some other shape.
And then how far is the setback? Like how far is it from the sidewalk to the street?
I'm not sure. We didn't measure that. Typically, the projecting signs are required to stand off of the structure anywhere from 6 to 12 inches. So that's what we're looking at. It is 8 feet above the street. That's for height requirements. But I think it's no more than 15 feet above on the building.
Yeah, it says it's 2 feet. The protruding edge of the sign is 2 feet from the building max. So like side of the building to the final edge, the outer edge of the sign.
My question was gonna be, is it 24 hours of illumination or is it like only business hours? Or do you have any clue?
They don't have to say. We could ask them to do that, but there's nothing that really requires
No,
that they
yeah,
turn it on
no
or off,
guideline. that
whether
really-
through zoning or through us. No. Of course. Yeah, it's not enforceable. They could do a projection blade sign, because that's the other option. And if they cleanly met that one, that could be approved as well. That doesn't have any internal lighting allowed. It's only exterior lighting that's allowed with those. And they are only allowed to be 2 inches in depth. So they're very, very thin. And only 6 square feet.
Yeah, I think because it is a hybrid, I don't think anybody objects to the sign itself necessarily. I think it's just more about disturbing neighbors, right? So I wonder if there's some compromise.
I was also curious, so I don't see in the design guidelines any discussion, I think, on placement on the building as far as like, not talking about height requirements and how far projecting from the building, but as far as like facade placement. Is that correct that there's not really any guidelines regarding that?
There's no strict ones, but we do have language in the guidelines about where you're placing a projected signs, typically near entrances. We thought the corner was appropriate here. Like I said, they're gonna have a cafe kind of around this corner, and the main entrance is near the corner. So typically we require that signs be located near the entrance. So if they were like trying to put it on the whole other side near the alley, where there is no entrance and it's next to someone's house, we wouldn't support that.
So right now it's backlit. Right?
Yeah, it's halo backlit.
So if they wanted to keep it lit within the guidelines, they could just do a basic 6 square feet and then light it from the bottom, or light it, they
It
could
would have to be from above with a
They
full
could-
cutoff.
they could put lights down on it.
Yes.
But you can put it on a timer too, right?
Or if they met a shaped projecting sign, that does allow halo backlit illumination, which this is. It just need to be a not rectangular shape and not just there.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, I think we're ready to hear from the applicants then. They're joining us virtually. think there's two of you from the applicant joining us. And when you are ready to speak, you can unmute yourself. You'll have up to 10 minutes, but if you would please begin with your name so that we know who you are. Otherwise, you're welcome to unmute whenever you're ready to begin.
Hi, this is Rodney Eaton from Da Vinci Sign Systems. And I just wanted to state a couple things about the sign. We can definitely change controls so that it's open only, or that the lighting is only on during business hours. That's easily controlled by a time clock. Please note that where the sign is located, we're not directly shining anyone's home at that point. We're on street side.
Just on a minute, and we'll begin again when we're back on track.
Can you hear me now? Is this any better?
Hear you just a slightly better, but not quite good enough, I think.
I can try moving my microphone a little closer. How's that?
That helps. If it's possible to
Okay.
get a little even closer on your end, that might be good.
It is. I can do that.
There you go.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that. And this is Rodney from Da Vinci Sign Systems. And I wanted to note that the sign is, being that it's reverse lit, pan channel letters, or excuse me, reverse lit, the lighting is pretty subdued already. I don't believe it would be a big issue with the client, and if he's available after this, speak to it. We can put it on a time clock as well and have it only run during business hours. That way it turns off at night when they close up. I don't think that would be a big issue. And the other part to note is where the sign is located, we're not really shining on anyone's homes. Being that the alley is pretty close to the west side and the next home is further down, they should never see the lighting, I would think. And then across the street would be the closest, but there's a lot of trees and stuff in between. The other side is all park. So I'm hoping that that is in consideration.
Okay, thank you. And is the business owner on the call as well, or looks like someone?
I know that Mike came down with COVID, and I was not sure if he was going to be able to get on or not. So if there's any other questions, I can help with.
I am here. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. My name is Mike Wade. I'm the executive director of Cafe Momentum Denver. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're excited to be part of this neighborhood and this project. If anyone has any questions about who we are and what we do, I'd be happy to answer them. But in terms of the question directly at us, in terms of hours of operation, absolutely. We would be completely fine with, and in fact, I anticipated that the sign would be on a timer for our business hours. As a reference point, we are not a 7-day-a-week operation. We are a social enterprise. And so our restaurant operations will actually only be happening 3 days a week. The rest of the time, we do training with our youth in our community services center, which will be on the second floor. So their education, their tutoring, their mental health work, all of the other pieces of our program will be handled there. But the signage is absolutely something that would only be lit during business hours when appropriate.
Okay, thank you. You do have quite a bit of time left if you're anything else you'd like to say.
Sure, absolutely. One thing to learn, I like to talk, so you're going to probably cut me off in 7.5 minutes. So, no, I very much appreciate the opportunity, and I first and foremost want to thank everyone here on the commission. As a side note, I used to be the mayor of Parker, so I completely understand, what these meetings are like and how much of your personal time you donate to your community. So thank you for that. To give you a little bit of background on Cafe Momentum, what we are is we're a series of fine dining restaurants that are around the country where we bring justice involved youth, so kids 15 to 19 who've been released from detention, and we provide them a year-long paid internship and we teach them how to run every aspect of our restaurant, front of house, back of house. We provide 24/7 access to mental health, case management, leadership skills, financial literacy, all of the pieces that these youth need to become not only productive members in society and out of the judicial system, but how to become leaders. We were founded 11 years ago in Dallas, Texas, and we have restaurants in Dallas, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and Denver is our next expansion. We are an independent 501c3, so we're our own organization out here. And as the executive director, my job is to lead the ship. And so we're so proud and honored to be the new tenants here at Fire Station number 10, with the ultimate goal of us actually purchasing the building for our youth as well. It's exciting to be part of a historic facility that was, purpose built almost 100 years ago to save lives. And now we have the opportunity for it to be the home where we change lives in our community. So our restaurant operations will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings. We're looking at 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We are also looking at, we also will be providing catering services off site and things like that as well, so that our youth can have the full experience of what it's like to work all aspects of the restaurant. We will have a full pastry kitchen in as well. We will look forward to doing community partnerships with other nonprofits and organizations around the community, and just being a good neighbor to Curtis Park. So I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have. And I do apologize. I did test positive for COVID yesterday. I feel fine, but my voice is kind of muted, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicants?
So I had one. For some reason, I thought that the sign was on the corner, but it's on the side facing 32nd Street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's squarely facing the park.
Correct. It's not on a 45 with the corner. It is flat mount. The standoffs are flat mounted facing the park.
Right. Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you all.
Staff, Crystal, do you have any clarifications? Okay. All right. We are ready to deliberate. Commissioners, what are your thoughts?
I think with the additional information and further review, the proposed design for the sign is making a lot of sense. And understanding the exact context and placement of the sign, that it is facing the park and that it's at the corner of the building. Well, it is at the corner and intersection of two streets. I think I'm reassured of the placement of it and that it's going to be lit, understanding the hours of operation and business, that what their intentions are of when it will be lit, and also understanding how much output of light. I think that this location makes sense. And then it's not actually, there's one house across the street, it seems, that we'll be able to see this sign directly. So I think the reassurances of when the light will actually be on and how much output there is, I'm reassured that this isn't going to be a disturbance.
Thank you, Bree. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would be in support. I live on 31st and Arapahoe, so a block away. And if I had the light switch, I would probably keep it on. The neighborhood it's up and coming. but it was on that block maybe 8 months ago that my car was shot. It's a little bit of light, I think, helps, honestly, and bother me.
Right. That doesn't seem like there's any other comments that would like to be made. If someone would like to make a motion, you're welcome to. We can discuss further.
I can make a motion.
Okay, thanks, Bree.
I move to approve application 2025 COA 944 for the projecting blade sign at 3201 Curtis Street as per design guideline 6.21, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Bree. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rusty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? All right, so the motion passes and this project has been approved. Thank you all for your time.
And thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. All right, we don't have any business items, but we have 2 discussion items that remain on our agenda today. First, we'll hear about, this is kind of a mini training that we'll be taking on from time to time of different subjects, and this will be about application of design guidelines. And then we'll also hear about the year in review for 2025. We'll hear from staff about these items, and then commission can discuss amongst ourselves and with staff, but we won't have any actions or votes about any of these items. All right.
So since we are going to be adopting hopefully new guidelines at the next meeting, we felt like this was a good meeting, also as we're very light on agenda items, to kind of just do a little refresher on the guidelines. So the design guidelines are based on the Secretary of Interior standards, which provide the framework and guidance for maintaining, repairing, and replacing historic building materials, as well as designing new additions or making alterations. So the Secretary of Interiors does have their own guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing historic buildings. And of course, historic preservation here in Denver did start with Larimer Square, which was Denver's first historic district, and Dana Crawford. So I just threw that picture in here as that is where Denver's preservation movement started in the 60s, and Denver does have one of the oldest historic districts, so we're quite proud of that. But generally speaking, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation is most often used. So this is the standards that provides the framework to allow for contemporary uses while preserving significant historic architectural and cultural features. It also provides the regulatory guidance for historic preservation tax incentives, which you are all very familiar with, as that was the bulk of our agenda today, which was established in 1976. It also provides the basis for local design guidelines. So again, it's the standard we use most often, and it is the basis for our design guidelines. So in terms of the standards for rehabilitation, there are 10 of them. They're referenced here, and they're also referenced in our design guidelines. They're the main standards we look at when we are talking about altering historic properties and looking at the tax credit program. I won't go over all 10 of the standards, but I think, for a lot of our work, 9 is pretty significant, but also 2 and 3, but won't go over all of them. They're all equally important. So when we're talking about design review, I think there's a few important questions to ask and keep in mind. So what is the area of significance? So here in Denver, we have historic cultural districts and cultural landmarks, and then we have historic districts. So they do vary, and they do have different purposes. So we have the La Alma Lincoln Park Cultural District and the 5 Points Historic cultural district. And they are designated for different reasons. So as we discussed in one meeting, 5 Points is not designated for its architecture and only has 9 contributing buildings. There are different reasons for why those districts are designated. La Alma Lincoln Park has a period of significance that goes up all the way to 1980, which is almost 100 years of a period of significance. There are different reasons why we're designating that district, and there are different things we want to preserve in that district versus this is Alamo Placita that you see on the screen, and there are different things we want to preserve. So, you know, you always have to look at what is the area of significance when considering alterations within those historic districts. Additionally, what is the level of significance? So we have individual landmarks, and then we have contributing buildings in a historic district. We also have non-contributing buildings. You're going to treat each of these buildings differently because they have different levels of significance. So obviously individual landmarks are the most important buildings, followed by contributing buildings, then non-contributing buildings. And then, will the proposed work alter the building character? So this is the National Western Stock Show Amphitheater, which is an individual Denver landmark. But when you're considering work, how much of that work will alter the character of the building? And will someone still recognize that building, that knew that building during its period of significance? And then, can new construction clearly be distinguished from the old? So here we have a new addition that you can clearly identify as a new addition. And then I can never remember on the photo on the right, which is the new addition. I actually think it's the portion of the building on the left that is the new addition. So it is important that you can distinguish new construction from old construction and how far you take that and where is that line. And then finally, what is the cumulative impact of alterations that you allow on a structure? That is very important when we're looking at changes to buildings. I think one of Jesse's favorite things to say is death by 1,000 cuts. We often see that where people will trickle in, oh, I'm just changing one window, and then a month later it's 2 windows, and then 3 months later it's 4 windows. So, you know, we have to keep in mind these cumulative changes because they really do have a big impact on a building. And then how reversible is the proposed work? So here we have the addition to Cuba Cuba, which is an individual landmark designated for its Carpenter Gothic. It has this very modern addition to it, but this addition is at the rear. It has a gable roof form. It is, you know, could be removed and not have a significant impact on that individual landmark. And then, you know, these solar panels that we are allowing additional flexibility here, those also could be removed. But in DC, you know, people wanted solar panels, but not at the front, and they didn't want them to stand out. So how reversible is the proposed work that you're looking at is an important factor to look at. So these are really significant questions to keep in mind anytime you're looking at projects in terms of the guidelines. So design review must balance commission priorities with community interests. So the role of commission and staff is always to document and share the history and the community, preserve the historic character of designated buildings and districts, ensure new construction is compatible with historic districts, designate new resources, and share stories of all members of the community. Unfortunately, outside of commission purview is affordability and density, economic development. We don't have, we don't look at sustainability and climate action here at this commission level. We also don't look at private property rights, and we also don't look at artistic expression. We also don't get into how available are our contractors. That is just not within the commission purview. Those are all important factors, but they aren't within our purview, unfortunately. So in terms of the design guidelines, when we're looking at the design guidelines for Denver landmark structures and districts, and this is our new cover page, we have intent statements, and these intent statements establish the goals to be achieved through the application of the guidelines for each topic. And they also establish what may be appropriate for alternative or innovative approaches. So anytime that you feel like a guideline is not giving you the guidance that you want, you can always look towards the intent statements to be like, is this establishing a goal for architectural features that this is just the page I pulled, for example, or windows that I want to achieve for a project. So staff really strictly interpret the guidelines, and you as the commission have additional flexibility to be like, well, is this meeting the intent statement? So we say, any project that doesn't cleanly meet the guidelines, we are forwarding you to the commission. And this is where you as the commission of 9 can discuss projects and be like, this is meeting this intent statement. So that is really where you as the commission have the opportunity to provide that flexibility to our community. So in terms of defensible decisions, you should always base your decisions on the guidelines and intent statements. So we used to have the guidelines printed out for you here at the table. We're going to do that again with the new document. So it'll be easier for you to reference the guidelines and intent statements. And we would really like you to, when you're making, discussions about projects, reference those guidelines and intent statements and cite them during discussion. I know it's sometimes hard, but we cannot design for applicants. That's not what we're here to do. We're really just here to say, does a project meet the design guidelines? Does it meet the intent statements? And then we always have to stay within the LPC purview. So we don't have purview over use. We don't have purview over paint color. We don't have purview over, I don't know, Jen, help me out.
Anything that doesn't need permits.
Yeah, anything that doesn't need permits. We don't have purview over the interior. So we always have to stay within our purview here at this table. And if you ever have questions, you can always ask us. You can always ask the attorney. That's why we have the attorneys here. So feel free to ask us before the meeting. If you ever have questions, concerns, we're here to help. And then finally, recognize that not every guideline is going to be applicable or can be met. So, there are times where every guideline can't be met. And I think Crystal's project that she just brought to you today is a good instance of that. It was a unique sign and it didn't quite meet the requirements for the size, but you approved it. And that is an instance where you as the commission can discuss the sign and provide justification using intent statements or other guidelines as to why you would provide deviations on that. So that's what I just have to present on a little mini training. Happy to answer any questions on guidelines or the Secretary of Interior standards or making defensible decisions.
Thanks, Brittany. I hesitate to say this because you guys do so much and I don't want to add one more little thing, but I think it's the reminder of the intent statements, why they're there, and I think is a really good reminder. And you guys do such a good job of laying out, which design guidelines you're considering things under and how they are met or not being met. And I'm just wondering if there's and once in a while, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, sometimes the applicable intent statements are also replicated in the staff report, but not always. I'm just kind of wondering if it's not too much to ask to replicate those. make it more consistent, I guess, to present those.
Yeah, we definitely don't have those as often in our staff reports.
Yeah.
I think because I'm speaking from my personal perspective here. I know we don't have Jesse's online, Amy's online, so if they want to pitch in, I'll let them. But I think we don't. We feel that those are more, I don't want to say interpretive, but I will say like we feel like we strictly interpret the guidelines, and we feel like you as the commission can have a larger discussion on those things. So I think that's why we don't reference them as much, but I see Amy is typing something right now, so I'm curious what she says. And
I would also say that the intent statements are vague because they apply to everything, and the design guidelines are often more specific.
Right.
Yeah. I think in the cases where we're like, oh, this doesn't cleanly meet any guidelines, I have referenced intent statements in the past. But I'm gonna see if Jessie has her hand raised, maybe. If she wants to say anything, she doesn't, but I did see Amy that was typing. So, but yeah, we'll discuss among staff and get back to you.
Yeah.
On that.
Can you go back to the what we're supposed to reference and what we're not? I think maybe the slide before this one.
This one potentially, or
No, the 2 columns.
this review.
Yeah.
This one right here. So this is the one that really, I'm going to give an example that I hope, because I probably won't say it correctly, or I'll say it wrong and it will come out wrong. So I'm going to give an example that hopefully proves what I'm trying to say. The example is, say, and I think we had this example come at one of the commissioner meetings where the individual bought a home and somebody had replaced all the windows with all vinyl windows, and she had one historic wood window left, and she wanted to replace that wood window with a vinyl window to match all the other ones, and she got denied, even though she just wanted to replace that last window because it didn't meet the design guidelines. So there was a reasonable or rational decision-making process there, even though it didn't meet the design guidelines. There was something there just reason-wise to where the commission could have said, okay, it just makes common sense to say, allow this person to replace this last window, even though it didn't meet the design. Is there a clause or a common sense clause that we can kind of look to sometimes that doesn't fall within that left column, but could fall within the right column?
I would still say that goes back to intent statements, and during that discussion, I was encouraging you all to go reference the intent statements.
I mean, I think I guess I would just posit, Chris, that in that case, it might have been common sense for you for one way, but for me, it was common sense the other way, insofar as by removing the last historic window, there would never be a reference to what was the design of the historic windows and provide guidance on how to replicate those if a homeowner wanted to do that in the future. So I guess while common sense kind of seems like it should just be common sense, there's still a lot of differing opinions on that.
I think public sentiment could maybe hurt what our long-term goals are as the commission and preservation in general if we continue to go down that path sometimes. And that's what I worry about. Like if we continue to be so strict in the guidelines for preservation's sake, that people can start to push back and we're not getting the goals that we may want long-term because of a window.
I will say that vinyl remains a controversial material, and we are still not supportive of vinyl in the guidelines.
Like I said, the example was just an example, but you know what I'm saying is a larger picture, I guess.
I will say Jesse also reminded me that specific example was a non-historic addition, and I think that was the reason why we were flexible there is because it wasn't historic fabric and it was matching like for like material.
Right.
But still that was, I think, again, the intent statement supported that because of, I can't remember the exact discussion now, but. the
Yeah,
intent
I still
statement
want us to
supported that.
shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes, right? Like we are gonna say the guidelines are the guidelines and everything we do is based on the guidelines and we have no off ramp for anything. Just for common sense or reason or rationale and only this way. And I worry about that.
It also seems though that public trust would be amplified if there was consistent application of the guidelines versus, trying to do a more broad interpretation.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, I mean, I kind of see like, we have the Secretary of Interior standards, which are very broad, very kind of philosophical framework, not, it doesn't give direction, right? And that's why design guidelines are very important for local communities to have to apply more directly to projects. But of course, you can't ever, have anything that would meet any particular circumstance or every circumstance that could come before the commission. And so the intent statements help kind of bridge that gap of like philosophical framework to application of specifics that may or may not actually apply to a project. And so it seems to me that, and I think this is what Brittany was getting to, was that hopefully the intent statements provide that off-ramp that you're talking about, Chris, when it seems like we're going too far into the weeds on something that isn't truly what's at stake for a historic property. And in your opinion, like the one window, and that maybe the intent statements can help. And I don't know that, I can't recite those off the top of my head to give you a good example, but hopefully what I'm saying kind of makes sense as far as like difference of level of specificity and how to think about different types of projects.
Is the off-ramp partly community interest? I mean, where, maybe your immediate neighbors are all in support, 10 letters of support, maybe one neighbor across the street who's anti, it's not really within the purview, but the community interest, the community is kind of spoken and seems to be outnumbering support for whatever is kind of off. So, I mean, the community interest one just kind of throws me off. It seems like a catch-all for kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but does that actually sway the commissioner at all, right? Like I would say if like there's 10 folks out here who's saying, hey, we would say the opposite of what staff is saying here, does that actually sway the commission into going against staff at that point? Which would be, in my opinion, great, or maybe I disagree, I don't know, whatever the situation is. I'm not really sure, but would that actually influence the commission one way or the other? I guess it would depend on the circumstances, but it would be, just.
Our mandate is to review all presented testimony, which includes, those opinions.
Right. I just think that
I
wish Nick was here because I think Nick would have the same opinion as I would.
I think ultimately you still have to make your decisions based on the design guidelines. We do craft guidelines based on what is applicable to local community interest. And sometimes those guidelines don't always align with what the Secretary of Interior's standards recommend for preservation. I'll give two very clear examples on that. The Secretary of Interior standards would never support pop tops. We allow those here in Denver. And we did that because the community told us that that was important to them. You cannot get tax credits for projects that involve a pop top. That is something we did here in Denver because our community told us that was important to us, but that was a significant effort and uplift in our guidelines. That has been crafted in our guidelines. And our windows now. Common windows are gonna involve taking out historic fabric and resulting in projects being ineligible for tax credits now. And I do wanna make that clear to the commission. And we do feel that it is a fair trade-off because our community has expressed to us that the way we have treated windows in the past has caused conflict between people's desire to designate and move forward with designations. And we feel that we are making the correct move, but it is going to make projects ineligible for tax credits. And we do need to be honest with that. However, we are still moving forward with that because again, we feel it is a fair trade-off. But it again is in the guidelines and this was an over 3-year process. So again, when we say that we are looking at community interest, it is something that we do over time and craft into the guidelines. It is something that needs to be a process that we develop over time and put into our guidelines. So it's when you're making decisions, you need to base on the guidelines and
Can I ask this question? If we disagree with something, so say we disagree with, we'll just say the silly window example again, because that's all I have to go on right now, that's all I can think of right now. But say and I don't have anything to go on because it's clearly within the guidelines. And I can't say it's not within the guidelines because it's clearly within and it's my personal opinion because I think it's common sense, even though it's, as you stated earlier, it's your common sense is different than mine in that regard, right? Yeah. How do I argue it in a different way that's not my personal opinion? Because you said we can't use our personal opinions. So that becomes really difficult.
But doesn't that go back to it being quasi-judicial and that we have to have legally defensible opinions?
Right,
based
so
on
how do I say,
guidelines?
how do I vote differently if I feel like it's different?
Well, you're supposed to follow the guidelines and represent the guidelines.
But
versus
I
your personal
don't,
opinion.
what if I disagree with the guidelines in that regard?
Then you can disagree, but you're supposed to vote the guidelines.
But then I'm voting against my own conscience at that point.
Correct.
So then what am I doing here?
Well,
Yeah, but
interpreting the guidelines.
no,
based on-
then I shouldn't even be on the commission.
I mean, not all the guidelines are in harmony with one another either. So are there other guidelines? Could you look to other guidelines that help you support your reasoning for, whether it's like a cohesive look or, I know that's not like a term that's being used, but I know there's things along those lines within the guidelines. I think there might be more opportunity for you to like look and see what other guidelines might apply that maybe staff didn't bring up, but you think do.
It would
that-
contradict.
That might contradict might contradict at least the staff reading of or someone else's reading of a design guideline.
Yeah,
I'm just
maybe.
wondering.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'd like to just say as far as public opinion goes and quasi-judicial, like we're on this commission because we supposedly have expertise in various fields that touch upon historic preservation and the building environment. And we have the task of maybe making hard decisions that the public doesn't like, but that we think is the right decision. That's not what we're talking about just now, of disagreeing within us, but I don't think we should look to say, well, we've gotten 10 letters of support from, a one type of opinion, that when it's clear like that it's not meeting the design guidelines or the intent or, I don't think that's what we're really here for, is to
Internally feeling the conflict between voting with the guidelines and having disagreement internally.
Mhm.
Like that is a very strong conflict at times. So I do respect that discomfort.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you do so blindly, but like, and I think that possibly like, expressing some of that while then, trying to tie it back to the document. I don't know, is what I'm going to endeavor to do better. So, thank you. Is there a presentation from Jen?
Are we ready to move on from
That
to the next discussion?
No, okay. No, I'll just have to debate.
I will say, if you would like to discuss more with our attorney,
Sure.
feel free. But any other thoughts on this topic?
Okay, I think we're ready to hear from Jen about 2025.
Alrighty, so as with every year, the landmark team was very busy. I'm happy to do the year in review, which we do every year, usually in February. Sometimes it's in January. We tried this year, it didn't work out. So thanks for your patience.
It's early February. You're fine.
It's early February, yes, exactly. So I just want to be able to see the screen, so I'm going to close that. Okay, so our team structure has not changed a whole lot in the last year. These are all of the wonderful teammates up here. But we have the design review team, and the planning and regulatory team. We did lose a position during the budget cuts on the planning and regulatory team. We also lost our inspector who's in the zoning and neighborhood inspections team. We were able to save a staff planner position and we're hiring for that now. So that'll be in the 2026 year in review that you'll see that. So next slide. We had one additional designation this year that you all reviewed and approved, and so did City Council. That was the Colin Coolish House at 510 South Garfield Street. We have a whole bunch lined up for you this year. So we, in terms of design review, we had over 1,800 projects that we reviewed. Most of those were administrative or quick reviews. There were 127 commission reviews. You're going to see that your number of reviews that you all did is different from 127. It was much more than that because this number doesn't count tax credits. It doesn't count other non-design review projects. So know that that looks like a small number. It is compared to what you all have done. So if you go to the next slide, it shows the last 5 years. So we are still very high. Out of the last 4 years, it was our second highest year. So a lot of projects coming in. Complexity, our quick permits went up quite a bit last year, which is that is to be expected because we had a big hailstorm in 2024 and had a lot of re-roofing in 24 and in 25 that carried over. And so that was a big source of the quick permits with us, but also we expanded what qualifies for a quick permit so that we can have more flexibility there. Those are usually things that are reviewed within 1 or 2 business days. Administrative reviews were down a bit, but not substantially, and commission reviews were pretty flat because again, we're not counting the tax credits and stuff. Next slide. So demo reviews, we had 414 that we reviewed. Of those, 7 were in historic districts. Those were for things that came to you all, non-contributing buildings, garages, stuff like that. And the CDEs, Certificate of Demolition Eligibility, and demolition applications were just over 400. The next slide shows the 5-year cycle, I believe. Yep. And we had we were a little higher this past year than previous years, but not substantially. So The last 3 years, the number of demolition applications dropped precipitously, and that was, we believe it's because of interest rates, and the higher the interest rates, the lower the number of demolitions. It's just what we've seen historically. We reviewed 401 last year that we approved within 10 business days. So that is our review process. We have 10 business days to determine whether a property has potential to be a landmark or not. 401 of those were approved within that 10 business day period. 6 of those were found to have potential to be landmarks, and we posted notice for 21 days. We did receive 1 designation application, which was a project that you all reviewed and did not move on to City Council. That's about average. I mean, most of the the properties that we find have potential to be have potential to be individual landmarks are between 1.5% and 2.5%. So it's a pretty low number, but we need to review them to make sure that we're catching that percentage. Next slide. All right, tax credits. You guys had a monster list this week. We reviewed so far for work completed in 2025. You all approved over $370,000 in tax credits. That's over $3 million worth of work that went into historic properties in Denver. Not just historic properties, but these are residential non-income producing properties in Denver in 2025. So this is work completed in 2025. We still have one more meeting to get through in 2026. That will be the cumulative effect of all the work that was completed in 2025, because it all has to be done by the end of February. But if you go to the next slide, it shows the 5-year cycle. We blew the numbers out of the water. I had to change the scale like 4 times. So usually we're in the 150, 200,000 range, and it was just so high last year. So all of this work is great work that goes into the historic building. It goes to the skilled contractors who are doing this work. It goes to their families who then spend money in their neighborhoods and do restaurants and things like that. So this is great money that spreads through the economy. It does not just end up in the pockets of the homeowners. So.
Can I ask, do you have a sense of why it shot up so high?
No. I heard a rumor that the state was out advertising it at neighborhood meetings and community meetings, that this was a possibility, but I don't know. Yeah. All right, next slide. So what goes to the commission? Again, you all know this, but the community doesn't always know this. So design review projects always go to you all. You have the 127, including the LDDRC last year, but also tax credits go to you all. Designations go to you all. Demos in historic districts go to you all. Economic hardship goes to you all. Fortunately, we haven't had one in a year and a half. Next slide. We always do a comparison of what staff's recommendation was and what the commission decision was, and we're not checking to see if you all are in lockstep with us. We are checking to see if we have read you all right, because we want to give our customers the best customer service to help them through this process. So if we are recommending approval and we're 75%, I guess I didn't change the scale on this, sorry. If we're 75% recommending approval and you all are 75% recommending denial, we have a big problem. But we are very close to each other, which is great. That's exactly what we're hoping to do on staff's end. You all have your own independent reviews of the guidelines and your interpretations of the guidelines. So this is really for us to check that we're doing our good job listening. So again, you had 228 projects that were on the agenda. Many of them were tax credits. And then Graham, Julie, and George stepped down. We had Lars, Bree, and Elizabeth who joined the commission. There you go. Thank you for joining. Next slide. this LDDRC. They had a whopping 30 projects that went to them, so much quieter agendas, much shorter meetings. They had 10 meetings. They had a lot of turnover this past year. But again, we were very similar in terms of our review recommendations and the commission's decisions on these. Yeah.
Approval on consent, how, I feel like I'm clearly not reading this correctly, how are they higher the commission dissent than 45%?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, I didn't even notice that. I'll have to look at that. I'm not sure. That might be a typo. Yeah, it might have been 40% and I just typed it in wrong. Thank you. I'll fix it. Okay, next slide. Planning regulatory projects. So we have the whole design review team, which is the one that mainly comes to you all. You also see designations that the planning regulatory team does, but they do a ton of work and I wanted to showcase some of their work. So they've been working on the American Indian and Indigenous Peoples historic context. Their final event is this Saturday. It's called We Are the Land. It's going to be at the Hydro Building at CSU Spur, Saturday from 1 to 4. It is free. It is open to the public. We encourage you all to attend it if you would like to. It is not required, but it should be a really wonderful, feel-good day. So, and it's drop-in. It's not like you have to be there the whole time if you decide to go. We've also been working on the landmark design guideline update. That is mostly the design review team who's been working on that. And we are working on phase 2, which is windows and doors, going to you all next meeting. And then AEUs, which hopefully will go to you all this year. And then the third part of phase 2 is going to be a little bit of cleanup of some of the areas like signage, the rest of chapter 5, which is site work and a couple of other minor things. And then Discover Denver. So we have a partnership with Historic Denver. This is a business and financial partnership, or preservation and financial partnership with them to support this citywide building survey. Phase 5 was I'm gonna screw it up. Phase 5 was like Northeast Denver and West Denver. I'm not going to name the neighborhoods because I'm sure I will miss one and I'll be very embarrassed. So, but those surveys are completed and now the survey reports are being worked on. The Historic Denver is working on phase 6 now, and that is they started in Highland neighborhood. So, yeah, next slide. Cool. We do a lot of community engagement. We try to get out in the community and talk with people about the work we're doing. We usually have presentations at the CPI Colorado Preservation Conference. That happens in January or February each year, and the next one is going to be next week. So I know some of you are going, and that's exciting. See you there. The National Alliance of Preservation Commissions has a conference every other year, but also webinars during the year. And Abby Chrisman on the planning regulatory team is the chair of the board of the NAPC. And so she and other staff have given webinars through NAPC. We often have a booth at the Denver March Powwow, and we will again this year, but we staffed a booth the whole powwow, which was really fun. We participated in a tribal convening. We have hosted these in 23 and 24. In 25, this was hosted by the City of Denver, the Climate Action and Sustainability and Resilience team, CASR, and we participated in that. We have several staff who join or teach at the University of Colorado, Denver. So we help out with those courses. We also speak at the Realtor Seminar that's hosted by Historic Denver twice a year. Brittany and Crystal did an Architecture of Death presentation for the medical examiner's office, which is super cool and was really great. And maybe they could reprise that for you all sometimes when you have time, because it was really neat. And then a University of Colorado Boulder colloquium on environmental design that Brittany attended and spoke at, which is great. Next, we're almost done. So we also do behind the scenes things, not just out there sharing what we do. So this year we fully were integrated into Denver's e-permitting system. It was a huge effort, and we're still working out some kinks, but it's going really well. Customers now apply to us through e-permits instead of sending us an email, and then the email might get lost, or the attachment is caught by our spam people, and all the things, and our filter. We've had so many problems with people applying through email. Now they apply through e-permits, and life is grand. So we're definitely working through that. We're also soft launched the simultaneous review for building and zoning permits with Landmark, so customers can apply for a building or zoning permit just through e-permits, and then it gets flagged to us, and we tell them, hey, don't forget to apply for a certificate of appropriateness. It used to be that customers were told, you cannot do this, you have to go to Landmark first. So now there's a lot more of this cross work that our teams are doing. We simplified the certificate of appropriateness template so that it was a lot faster for us to issue these, and instead of stamping every single stinking drawing, we now compile an approved application set and upload that to e-permits, and that is a lot faster and easier for the whole team. And Crystal is nodding over there heartily. It has saved us a lot of time. We collaborated on an update to the neglected and derelict properties ordinance that was passed by City Council, and we've been working on rules and regs for that with the ZNIS team, zoning and neighborhood inspections. I can see you glazing over, there's a lot, sorry. And then zoning code regulatory diagnostic project. It was a project that our former zoning administrator really worked on to try to see how we might streamline and simplify the zoning code. And so Landmark was trying to help out with that, participate in that as much as we could. And then finally, Prop 123 passed Colorado a while ago, I don't remember when, but the city of Denver is trying to integrate that into our processes. It means that we have 90 days from the time an application comes in to make a decision on it, including applicant time. It is not just staff time, it is staff and applicant time whenever there's an affordable housing project that qualifies for this process. So it is a very tight turnaround, and so we've been working on how to integrate that into our project, or our workflow. So yeah.
I had a question about, could you briefly summarize what the update to the neglected and derelict properties ordinance was?
Oh, it's been months.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. You don't. Okay, so digging back. Yeah, so there's more, the city now has more teeth to find property owners of neglected properties, and it's not just buildings anymore. So if you have a vacant lot that you've torn down the building and it's just weeds, or you have cars in it, or whatever it is, and it's collecting trash, that can be part of this neglected derelict properties as well. We also are trying to streamline the process of what goes through, what is landmark review, what is going to be zoning and neighborhood inspections review. How can we try to disincentivize, or not disincentivize, but discourage property owners of significant historic properties that are on the neglected and derelict list from proposing demolition as their solution. Let's see what we can do to try to encourage them to retain the building and repair it. So a lot more synergy between our teams, which is great.
One other important thing is that the city can now preemptively secure a building and then transfer that cost to the owner.
That is true. Yeah.
Very important.
Amy also said implementing and updating an NADP, which I always forget what that stands for.
Property.
Program.
Neglected and
Program in the summer, and there are a lot of different regulations that still need to be ironed out.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a big initiative that was put together by a few city council members and their aides, and looped us into it, which is great. It was kind of a whole many city agency effort to include Department of Public Health and Environment and the safety teams and other groups to make sure that we're we're all working together and for the same goal. Yeah. All right. I think the last slide is the next one. I could be wrong. Yes, what's on tap? Ooh, this is my favorite part. Okay, we, as I said, on Saturday, we're finishing up the American Indian and Indigenous Peoples Historic Context Project. There will be a mini documentary that's going to be aired on Denver 8 in a couple of weeks. There's going to be a premiere of it, which is exciting, but it also will be at the event next on Saturday. We are hoping that the window and door replacement guidelines will be adopted soon, and if not, we'll keep working together on it. And then the ADU guidelines as well coming up. We need to do updates to our design review rules and regulations because of Prop 126 for the fast track affordable housing projects, because our regulations don't meet that. So we're going to be bringing that to you all. Those are things that are their rules and regulations, they get adopted by you all. They don't have to go to city council, similar to the design guidelines, but it will be something that we're gonna try to get public comment on and make sure people are comfortable with it. Some minor landmark ordinance updates. We love that you all review 1,000,000% of all of our tax credits. That was very bad English. You review so many tax credits, but apparently we are like one of the only municipalities in the state that requires our commission to review them. So can we do it administratively? That would be so lovely. It would be so much faster for our customers. It would save you all a lot of pain. It would save Taylor a lot of pain having to upload 20 million things to the website. But we would very much like to have things like that removed from our ordinance, just to or cleaned up from our ordinance. We don't need to send letters for an owner supported designation. We don't need to send them 5 letters along the way. They know what's happening, right? So let's send them a couple, but not all of them. So things like that. So we will be bringing that to you all. The NADP properties, the process improvement and enforcement cases, as Amy mentioned, Brittany mentioned, that Amy said, the rules and regulations there are being ironed out. And then finally, Discover Denver. This is my little baby. We are working on a map with our GIS team. It is a public facing map. It is so stinking cool. I am so excited about this. You will be able to click on a dot on the map and it will pull up a photo of the building from the survey. It will pull up all the information that was surveyed. It's so great. So our GIS team's been just crushing it. A lot of it is just trying to make sure that all of the various phases of this survey project are showing up consistently. We are almost done with phase 1 mapping, and we're just moving through, and phase 2 will be a lot faster. So we're hopefully sometime this summer we'll be able to get this out to the public because it's very exciting.
How many phases are there of the Discover Denver project?
We're on phase 6. So, and there was a pilot phase that we don't even count because that was done in some really archaic software that doesn't exist anymore, and the data is very messy. So one of these days when we have nothing to do, we'll work on that.
So it's more of like, as you guys are dividing up the neighborhoods, those are big phases, not to say there's like there's gonna be 10 phases.
No, it is, yeah, so each phase is a grant round, and the first few phases were like 2 or 3 neighborhoods, and now we're on like 10 neighborhoods at a time. Because we've made a lot of efficiencies in the survey process. We've made even more for phase 6, which is doing more of a windshield survey instead of doing, there still will be survey information about properties, but it's a lot simpler of a process. So
I am having flashbacks though to all my survey photos I took while volunteering, and it was like during the summer when there was glare, and we're like, well, we're gonna have to retake those. I'm like, hopefully those aren't on the map.
Well, whoever took photos for like a survey area, and I'm not gonna say who it is. I'm the one who's been fixing all of the photos, not in Photoshop, but in our software that we're using. someone had one leg that was taller than the other because all the photos.
Yes. Yes.
It's really charming.
I got called out. Chris Geddes called me out one time. There was like one survey I must have blacked out where apparently I was taking photos vertical, and I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Why would I be doing that?
Oh, I
She's
think
like,
I
I don't
know,
know,
yeah.
but you did. I was like, I don't believe you. But anyway.
Right. As I said, we've got a lot going on and we've done a lot and wanted to show off and toot our own horns, but also to show you all what the commission, how the commission engages in all of this, because you all are an important part of this process as well. So thank you for all your time and effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, all staff for having you guys do. It's a lot. All right. Well, anything else that we need to discuss? Bree.
Well, actually, this is a good note. So, I was curious, Chris had mentioned it too. It's lovely seeing everyone twice a month, but having some sort of social outing could be nice since there are some new commissioners. A social outing where we don't talk commission stuff, obviously, we just get to know each other a little bit more.
Do you want to address that after the meeting closes?
Yes.
Okay, well, I will officially close the meeting at 2:34. So thank you all for joining us.